All right. Thank you, and welcome everybody to this session on automation and optimization of demand planning. So my name is Finnur Bragason. I've been with AGR now for over 14 years, working on both product development, implementations, but the last years I've mainly been in sales and introducing the solution to our customer base. For today, I wanted to start off with giving you a short overview of the company and then go through a little bit the processes that we follow around demand planning. But the majority of the time I wanted to spend within the solution itself and show you how you can apply through a solution like AGR best practices in the world of demand planning. Now, who are we? AGR is a company that was established back in 1998. So this year we have 25 years experience in this field. This is the only thing we focus on. We do supply chain planning and forecasting. Now, we've been in this business a long time. We invest between 20 and 25% of all our revenues back into development to ensure that we're always on the latest platform and the newest technology base. We run offices in US and Canada. We're also in UK and Scandinavia, but the company was originally founded in Iceland. This is still where some of the development team sits. And we have some friends that some of you might recognize, such as LS Retail, that we work very closely with. A little bit about our solution. We have globally more than 650 customers operating on this solution base. We have quite a high retention rate that we're proud of. So our customers are generally happy with the platform, and once they have implemented this becomes kind of mission critical software in their operations. We've been having some strong growth last few years. We are now getting close to 100 employees actually, and we have about 3,500 users that log into this platform every day. We have many different customers using this platform. We can maybe split them into two halves. On one half, we have the wholesale and distribution arm, and this is the part that we will be focusing on today. So that means optimizing purchasing from external vendors into a main warehouse or distribution center. We also do the store replenishment, but we're going to save that topic for a better day. We have case studies on most of these customers available on our website. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how exactly these customers have been using the platform to optimize their inventory levels, you can find that on the website. Now, the process that I want to take you through today is the following. So we assume that the data is all available in your ERP system or Business Central or actually Navision. This is where you have your product information, all of your sales information, ordering parameters, and so forth. Now, the first step is the expert forecast module. So we have built multiple algorithms and forecasting methods into the system to enable you to get a better understanding of what your demand is. So instead of looking at average methods or min-max, the system will look at the trend in the sales. So if there's seasonality, growing sales, Easter, Christmas, the system will capture this automatically. On top of the forecast, we also calculate and estimate the safety stock that you need to carry for each forecast. So we can categorize the items and we can set our service levels. So let's say if we want to have for a certain category 99% service level, the system will look at the accuracy in the forecast and apply the appropriate safety stock. I'll show you this a little bit later in the system itself, and it becomes a bit clearer when you can see this visually. We will then go into the reporting engine where we can pull out exceptions. Exceptions could be overstocked items or items in risk of stockout, or for example, items that are new and they don't have any sales history. So there we have methods to handle those type of items. Then we'll move on to the planning part, to the demand planning part, and this is where we can manipulate the forecast on an aggregate level. So here we enable top-down, middle-out, or bottom-up planning, so you can change the plan on any levels, both by applying percentages or by changing them numerically. Now, once we've created the forecast, we've gone through the exceptions, and we have applied our knowledge through the planning platform, we will then take the forecast and apply the purchasing parameters. So looking at the lead times, minimum order quantities, unit quantities, and so forth. And the system will then be able to automatically create a suggestion for a purchase order that we can then play with. So I'll go a little bit into that part as well and explain how we can optimize those purchase quantities, for example, to fit into a container, or if there are some discounts in place, if you get to a certain minimum investment for the purchase value. Now, once we've finished this cycle, we can confirm that purchase order, and that will be automatically transferred back into Business Central and processed there as you process your purchase orders today. So really the focus here is how we can optimize the quantities to get the right product in the right time into the right location. Before we move on to this, I wanted to give you just a brief explanation on this platform, because this is an add-on to Business Central, and we are actually backwards compatible to NAV 2015. The solution is available on App Source. It's simply downloaded, and you're up and running within a few hours. We include hosting, Azure hosting on the solution, and we have simplified the implementation process quite a lot. So there is just a few days needed for training and data validation to get the users up and running on this platform. But we have included all of this in one monthly fee. So that fee includes software licenses, it includes the hosting, it includes all the implementation process, technical connections, training, and ongoing services. So this really reduces the risk of trying out a solution like this. You can try it out for a couple of months, see how it works, and there is not any significant upfront financial commitment needed to try this out. Now, back to the topic, automation and optimization in food and beverage. There are a couple of things I wanted to focus on in this presentation. I wanted to start off with explaining how we can apply statistical forecasting and how we can optimize our inventory levels by better understanding what our customers are, the quantities that they are needing, and what they will start to purchase. I'll also explain how we can apply service level settings and how we can adjust the safety stock calculation to optimize those inventory levels. Because most of you are operating on quite a large SKU base, exception management and ABC analysis is very important. So I'll show you a little bit the standard reports that we have in the system. That is the reports that we have seen that have been successful in other companies in food and beverage, and also how you can manipulate those thresholds if you want to adjust those reports. I'll also be going into the ABC categorization and show you the different levels we can do the ABC analysis on. So the ABC analysis is very important when it comes to item categorization. We need to know where we want to spend our time. So we need to prioritize those items and find the items that give us the most value in the business, because those are the items we want to keep a higher safety stock on, and we want to be more hands-on when managing those. When we get into the C items, we might not mind so much if we have the occasional stock out, and we don't want to invest heavily into the stocks for those items. I'll spend some time in the order optimization as well to explain how we can optimize order quantities to fit into containers. But we'll also look at other constraints that we can do, such as to value constrain the orders to get certain discounts, or if we want to take the best before dates into account to manage those inventory levels as they go forward. So this was kind of high level what I wanted to take you through. For the next part, I'll go into the system demo. I'll show you how this platform works, how you can visualize these challenges within the platform, and how we can create the orders and start optimizing. So as you can see in here, the solution is completely web-based. We log in through a browser, and I want to start off here in the items tab. So I have a number of items here. You can see the total here. I have 1,415 items in this demo database. So if I click on an item here, number 5, I'm presented here with the data graphically. So if I put the mouse here on March 27th or March 28th, which is today, we see everything on the left-hand side. These are historical values. Now, based on these historical values, the system automatically creates the forecast, which is the yellow lines. I'm viewing this here on a monthly basis, but of course, all of this data is available on a weekly and a daily basis as well. And we can control the horizon that we're looking at here, the forecasting period. So any trend that the system finds in the data, that will be reflected here in the forecast automatically. So the user doesn't need to have any advanced statistical knowledge. This is just what is statistically most likely to happen. If I take another example here of item number 1, here we can see the system is not finding any trend in the data, and thus referring to a moving average forecasting method. So we just have a flat forecast over here. But there are some interesting things here. We can see here during a period 2021, I have no sales in October and November. Here I can add the stock units as an overlay. So we can see here when I make a purchase, the stock level rises, and then as the sales come, we consume off of that forecast. But we can see here in this period, in 2021, there were 0 sales. In this case, we can add sales history. I'm going to do this manually, and we can simply drag the bar up, and you will see here the forecast will adjust automatically. So we can bridge these sales, and we can create some dummy sales over here. Now I'm doing this manually here. We also have automatic outlier detection, and the system can actually bridge this automatically for you to improve the forecast. Now, if we have a sales peak, we can do the same thing. We can drag those sales down if we don't expect them to happen again in the future. The system will keep the actual sales of 43 units, but it'll use the adjusted sale as a base for the forecast. Now, because we know our current stock levels and we know what the forecast is, we can also add here the estimated stock level. And if I zoom in here, we'll see that actually if I do nothing, I will have an estimated stock out here on May 17th. Now, there are some other parameters I wanted to show you as well. I want to take an example of two items here, item number 3 and number 4. So we can see here, item number 3 has a relatively stable sales history around 140. And we can see the forecast here is 134. Again, this is just a moving average. There's no trend in the data. The system is forecasting 134 items on a relatively stable sales history. If I go into item number 4, we can see that the sales history is much more volatile. It's going up and down. It's more difficult to predict what the demand will be. The statistical forecast is kind of similar. It's around 150 units. Now, we have on top of that, we have here what we call safety stock. So the system is recommending that we keep 27 units safety stock on top of this forecast of 150. Now, why is it 27? If we go here into the background and we look at some information on this item, we can see that we have a confidence factor, which is roughly the service level, or it determines the service level. And we have this set as 80%. So I want to have 80% service level. If I'm logged in as a super user here or an admin, so I can change this. I want to take this up to 98%. I want to have 98% service level on this item because this is very difficult to forecast. The system is telling me I should keep 65 units of safety stock on top of a demand of 150 if I want to keep the service level of 98%. If we go back to our other item that was more predictable and stable in sales history, and if I do the same here to increase the service level to 98%, watch the line here, it will jump up, but not as much as in the other one example. So here I only need 27 units of safety stock. So the system is doing this for all items. It's looking at the quality of the forecast, it's looking at the volatility of the sales history, and it is constantly recalculating the safety stock to meet our service level requirements. Now, we don't go and set the confidence factor for each and every item if you have thousands of items. For that, we have a function here in the settings tab where we can go and look at the ABC analysis. So in here, I'm going to just do a simple ABC classification based on turnover. So I click on the turnovers tab, and the system then automatically categorizes all of my items into A, B, and C. The A items being 5% of the items that give me 80% of my turnover. And the B items are 15% that give me then the remaining part of the turnover. So we can play with this both on turnover. We can do the ABC on margin as well. We can do it on cost of goods sold, sales quantity, and number of sales line, or the sales frequency of the items. And here we can set the target service levels on an aggregate level for all of our ABC categories. So if we want to drive up the stock levels and eliminate stockouts, we would push the service level up for these categories. But if the business goal is to reduce the working capital, reduce overstocked items, and free up some working capital from the business, we can drive down the service levels here on the different categories. We can also do the ABC analysis on two levels. So we could, for example, do it on turnover and sales quantity. And that would give us here a twofold ABC matrix. This is for customers that have a very large SKU base. This can be, especially in the food industry, where you have a large amount of items that you're managing. So this gives you a little bit more depth into organizing those categories. We then categorize them here into high, medium, and low importance to understand what are the categories we need to emphasize on and put our focus on. And these categories here then take us back to the dashboard, where we have some standard KPIs that we recommend to look at. We have some standard reports that we can highlight here for the user. For example, we can look at items that items that are in risk of stockout, or items with seasonality, or so forth. So we can select here, if we want to see the overstocked items, we can add that report in here. But here on the graphs, we can see, we can look at the new items, stock that isn't moving. We can look at the items depending on forecast uncertainty. So what are the volatile items? And we can categorize them here into high importance, medium, and low. But we also have the overstocked items and items in risk of stockout. So I can see I have 104 items that are in high importance and risk of stockout. So I can click on this tab here, and it'll take me into the items that fit into that category. Now, if I go back here to the items tab where we were before, we can see we have a few columns selected here. We have the item number, the item name, we can see the vendors, sales quantity, and item group level. We can pull out any information here from Business Central. We can look at the ABC analysis. We can look at different sales. We can look at the sales price. We can look at the sales quantity or the sales value last month, last 3 months, last 6 months. But we can also add a column here that we call days cover on hand. Because we know what the current stock levels are, we know what the forecasts are. So we can see how many days will this item last me. So I can see this item here will last me 14 days in stock. I can then further filter down on this, and I can tell the system to give me all items that last me 3 days or less in sale. So now you'll see that from 1,400 items, we go down to 208. Now I can then proceed to categorize them instead of going through 200 items. We could take the item group level. I can break down here nutrition and beverages. We can see that I have 6 beverages that are in risk of stock out. We can then look at the item card and we can see what is happening with that item. So we can play around a lot. We can look at, we can do a twofold analysis, both on item group level and primary vendor. So we can categorize those items as we want. I could save this report that I created here. And we could give it a name, a description, and I could share it, be my report. I could share it with everybody in my organization or so forth. And then it will be added here to the reports section. So here we have daily reports, for example, that I want to look at on a daily basis. We have items that are in risk of stock out. We have the weekly reports, fast movers, slow movers, and new items, for example. Here we have a list of the new items, 48 new items with no forecast. But then we have some standard reports as well, such as overstocked items and so forth. Now, once we have gone through these reports, we have looked at, for example, the new items. For the new items, I might want to borrow sales history. So I can connect items from this view here. So here we can create a connection. We can select the new item and we can connect it to an old item. We can connect the stock if it's a superseding item. So that means that when I'm creating an order, I will use the combined stock levels of the old and the new item. We can set the duration of that connection, and then we can scale the connection as well. So if, for example, if I want to double the sales history for the new item. So this helps us create some basis for the new items to create the purchase orders. And that is the next thing I wanted to take you through, is how to create the purchase orders. So to begin with, we look at the vendors that we have. We can select a vendor, and then we want to create a schedule around those vendors. So we can filter down, we can select a certain vendor, and we can save that as a group, and then we schedule that vendor to be replenished at a certain interval. So this is something we do only once in the beginning. So we can, if it's a local vendor, we could order him twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday. If it's a Far East vendor or a vendor that is ordered more infrequently, we can set up a monthly schedule, and we can order all months except July if I'm on holiday, and I can tell the system to order on the 10th of each month. So that means that on the 10th of February, the system knows my next reorder point is 10th of March. and it'll look at the forecast, the safety stock, the stock levels, minimum order quantities, and it'll suggest an optimized quantity to order to cover these 30 days. But in June, the system knows I'm not ordering in July, so it will cover a 60-day period until August 10th. So once we have set this up for all of our vendors, the user simply logs in into the orders tab over here. So here I'll get a list of all of my unconfirmed purchase orders. Let me just refresh that. So here we can see which vendors I'm ordering and into which locations. We can see the estimated delivery, we can see the order dates, if there are any exceptions to the orders that I might want to have a look at. If I click on the order, it takes me into a view where I can look at all of the items that belong to that order. So for example, here we can see this specific item. We can see when I make the orders, the stock levels go up, and then I consume off of that forecast. So we can see here I'm ordering here for a month period, 2,470 units. Now, we could play around with this. I could change this to 10,000. The system will then give me a visual of the order period and what I'm ordering. So here you'll see on the graph, actually this order will last me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will last me 6 months. So I'm obviously over ordering and have been doing that in the past as well. We can view different parameters and columns in the view here, depending on if I'm ordering from a local vendor or Far East vendor. And here we can look at the columns, and we can look at, maybe we want to see the estimated delivery date. We might want to see the item group level, and so forth. We can, if I'm optimizing for a container, I might want to look at the pallets or the stock units. So we can add all of the information that we want to this view, and we can then save the view as a standard view, as a quick edit view, local vendor view, or if I might have special views for dry foods or for frozen foods, the vegetables, I want to look at different views in that as well. And especially with those items, we might want to add the best before dates in here. So if you have the best before dates registered, we can display them here. We can also take them into account into the order period. So when you're looking at here, the stock levels, if I would have a best before date registered for this item, you would see the stock levels dropping in the middle of this period. Once that best before date kicks in, the stock levels would go to 0. The system would recognize this, and it would suggest an order quantity to cover for that, for the following best before dates. So the next part I wanted to go through here is to show how we can constrain this order. So the first part would be here to select the items I want to constrain, and I want to pull up some aggregate information here on this order. We can see here we have the total cost value of this order is 1.6 million. We can see the total quantity, we can see the weight and so forth. And again, I can go here into the background, and if there is any additional information such as the pallets or volume or any other information, I can add that on an aggregate level here. So we can create constraints. So I can constrain this order to let it last. We have a number of different out-of-the-box constraints. This can be number of days. So I want this order to have at least 2 weeks, or it should be less than or equal to 2 weeks cover. We could also have a pallet constraint. So I could say that this order should be less or equal to 22 pallets. And then I want to fill up with my lightest items. So in this case, the system would optimize the order. It will change the order quantities according to the actual demand and make it fit into a 20-foot container. We also have other options to constrain. I could do cost value constraint. So let's say, if you remember here, we had this was 1.6 million. So let's say I will get a discount if I go over 2 million. So I will have a 2 million value constraint here. I will save this constraint. And then once I have it saved, I'll simply apply this constraint to the order. The system will recalculate all of the order lines to optimize the quantity to reach above 20 million. Now I see I forgot one thing when I did the constraint. I should have, of course, had it to surpass the constraint, to be greater than. So if we try this again, I think this one was good. Here we will recalculate, and here you can see that the system optimizes to go just over 2 million in cost. So this is an easy way to manipulate the orders on an aggregate level to help us meet the criteria or the ordering criteria that we need. Again, for categorization, we always have the ABCs here. We can always take all of these columns, we can drag them up for prioritization. So if I have limited time, you can see here I have 14 AA items. If I want to review anything, I want to review my AA items in this order. So we have the categorizations here. Here we have the CC items. These are the items that are not bringing me as much value to the business. Now, once I'm happy with this order, I can simply highlight it and I can confirm it. And once I confirm it, it will be automatically sent to Business Central and it will be processed there to the vendor as usual. If there are any changes in the order quantities while it's being processed, so let's say you're ordering 1,000 units, the vendor can only deliver 500. This only needs to be adjusted in Business Central, and this will flow back into the system automatically. The last part I wanted to go through and show you just briefly, this is the planning part. And this is where we can change the forecast on an aggregate level. So here we can see I open the settings pane. I'm looking at a rolling 12-month plan, and I have it categorized based on my primary vendors. And I have a few data series in here. I can look at my statistical forecast, my sales plan, promotions, and total demand. So if I look at this vendor here, Gatorade, and I pull up the chart, we can see here that I have the statistical forecast. This is what is statistically most likely to happen. Out of the box, that is the same as my sales plan, and that total is my total demand. But I could say here that I know that Gatorade is going to do 25% better over the next year. So here I'm lifting up the forecast on an aggregate level. So the system will distribute this increase down to all of the months that I have in the plan, and it'll go proportionally down to all of the items that I purchase from Gatorade. We can categorize this on different levels. Here I have it categorized by primary vendor. I can go down to SKU level, or I can manage this on item group level. If there is a vendor that is, for example, I'm stopping with, I can simply zero out the demand. Or if we are stopping at a certain date into the future, we can zero that demand out. But for planning purposes here, I can also pull in some additional information. So let's say I want to see what happened last year. I can pull that here on top. Maybe I want to look at my, you can look at stock units. I can look at one thing that is often done. We can look at sales orders. So if there are any confirmed sales orders into the future, and I can then refresh this, and it'll then present me with the same groupings, the same categorizations, but I'm just pulling this additional information to help me plan. So here, if we look at this, we can look at the data here with the last year's sales and so forth. And of course, the promotions, we can plan our promotions in here. So if I want to do a promotion for this particular vendor or product group or item, I can add that numerically in here. And the system will then take that demand into account when I'm calculating the purchase order. So the only difference here is once this demand becomes history, the system will automatically exclude that from the sales history. Now, there are a lot of different options how to use this. There is different ways to configure these planning templates. We have many interesting reports which are completely open to the user, where you can slice and dice the information according to your requirements. I could probably go on here for another hour to show you some of the cool features that we have, but I think for now, this is the gist of it. This is the core functionality, and this is how you would use a system like AGR to forecast your demand, to increase automation and optimize the inventory levels. I thank you very much for your time today. We still have a few minutes left, so if there are any questions you have, I'd be happy to go into more detail in any areas of the system, or answer any questions that you might have.